The NFL is a what have you done for me lately league, and this especially applies to NFL rookies. They'll get their chances, and this very much applies to highly drafted rookies because the franchise that selected them invested a premium pick in them. But if they do not produce within a reasonable amount of time or show that they belong in the National Football League, well, guess what? It is a cutthroat business, and they will be out the door, and the next guy will be in to replace them. And as unfortunate as that can be for players, that's not going to be discussed in today's video because the players we are going to discuss are already proving their teams right. They've already shown what they can do at the NFL level, and it very much looks like they are here to stay. The 2024 draft class was regarded as one of the better classes over the past few years, and for good reason. We're already seeing the selections pay off for several teams, and the rookies that are proving their teams right are not limited to just the players in today's video. We're going to break down 4 rookies in particular that are already proving their teams right, and we'll go over a couple at the end too. Now let's begin. And we are starting today's video with Rams pass rusher Jared Verse. Verse was the 19th overall pick in the 2024 draft, and he was a player I liked coming out of Florida State for a few reasons. He had a very high floor as a prospect, and we've already seen that through his first handful of games. Verse is leading the 2024 draft class in pressures through 7 weeks with 27, and funny enough, the second leading player in pressures from the 2024 class is his teammate, interior rusher Braden Fisk. And if you followed the 2024 draft, then you know these guys were teammates at Florida State too. Now, Verse hasn't been getting a lot of love nationally, at least not as much as you would think, for a guy who has a real chance to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. The one big thing with Verse is despite having 27 pressures, he only has 1 sack, and what's particularly unfortunate about that is he had a good game against the Cardinals back in week 2 and had a few chances at a multi-sack game. Unfortunately for Jared, he was playing against Kyler Murray, and Kyler is one of the more difficult quarterbacks to bring down because the play is truly never over when going against him. But Verse has had at least 3 pressures in every game, and he has been a constant force for the Rams in 2024, and I am a firm believer that the sacks for him will come. Verse is tied for 15th in the NFL in pressures, and he's actually tied with Myles Garrett in pressures, despite Myles logging nearly 30 more pass rushing snaps. Now, I'm not saying a rookie Jared Verse is better than Myles, of course, but that is a stat to show how often Verse has been in the backfield relative to the amount of pass rushing snaps he's taken through the first month and some change. And for what it's worth, 2023 number 3 overall pick Will Anderson is technically 8th in the NFL in pressures, and he only has 2 more than Jared with 29. And I think that's worth noting because Will won the Defensive Rookie of the Year award in 2023, and through Will's first 6 games, he had 24 pressures, and like Verse, he only had 1 sack. Ironically, both players had a sack in their NFL debut, and then went at least 5 games without recording their second career sack. We know now that Will Anderson is regarded as one of the better up-and-coming pass rushers in the NFL, and he is expected to be a Texan for a long time, and I would expect the same with Jared Verse. He had such a high floor as a prospect due in large part to his power. Recently, I've watched several offensive line clinic videos and clips from former offensive linemen discussing how hard it is to defend a pass rusher that has great power because they know it's coming and they know what a guy can do off of an initial speed to power rush. And to play in the NFL, you have to have a lot of power, and Verse clearly does, and he has very heavy hands as a pass rusher. For a team like the Rams to not use a first-round pick since all the way back in 2016 with Jared Goff, I am confident they hit on Verse just a couple of games into his career. One other part of Verse's game that goes unnoticed more than it should is his ability to defend the run. He is at minimum a very solid player, and I was ecstatic for the Rams when this selection was made because he's a guy who will help defend the run at a high level while also being able to get after the quarterback. The sacks will come, and I think Jared Verse will win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award, and he is already proving the Los Angeles Rams right. Caleb Williams did not have the best start to his rookie season for a couple of reasons. He played the Titans in his NFL debut, and the Titans are a really solid team outside of a couple of positions. Quarterback is, of course, one of them, and you can argue that the Titans could be 3-3 or 4-2 if not for a couple of turnovers at very critical times, including the Bears game back in Week 1, for example. And believe it or not, the Titans defense is first in total yards allowed. Not fourth, not eighth, but first, and their defense is very, very good. And the Week 2 game against the Texans was another game in which Caleb wasn't really set up for success. The Texans defense has playmakers at every level, whether it's Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter at pass rush, whether it's Henry To'oTo'o in the middle of the field, or the back end, which has playmakers everywhere, whether it's Kalen Bullock, who is quietly having a really good rookie season, and you can even argue that he deserves a spot in today's video, whether it's Derek Stingley Jr., whether it's Kamari Lassiter, who is also having a really good season, Jalen Petrie, whoever, you get the point. The Texans defense is really good, and the Bears offensive line succumbed to the Texans pass rush in that game, as Caleb was sacked 7 times. Now, whether the quarterback is Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes, whoever, getting sacked 7 times is not going to set your quarterback up for success, much less in his second career start. Now, Caleb has really improved in the last 4 games, and over the last 4 games, Caleb has 9 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and has thrown for over 1,000 yards in those 4 games. Over the last 3 games in particular, Caleb has a passer rating of over 105 in all of them and has a passer rating of over 120 in each of the last 2 games, and I don't think that's being talked about enough, and especially for how impressive that is. And the 4 passing touchdown game against the Jags was the best game we've seen from Caleb so far, and he was in control from the start. If worse came to worse, we saw the big run that he had against the Jags, and Caleb Williams is obviously not going to be the dual threat that Lamar Jackson or even his fellow 2024 draftee Jaden Daniels is, but he has scoot to his game and he can get out of the pocket and make a play when he needs to, and we saw that against the Jags, and that's also very scary for opposing NFL defenses for not just the remainder of the 24 season, but really for the next 7, 8, maybe even 10 years. Guys, Caleb Williams is here, and I think the struggles that he had in the first 2 games, which again were kind of setting him up to fail against 2 great defenses and really throwing him to the wolves from the start against a good Tennessee defense and a great pass rush from the Texans, I think that was the best thing to happen to Caleb, because it was basically sink or swim, and after that, if you can get through those 2 games and still show some flashes, which he did against the Texans, the Titans game was certainly rough, but since then, it's been pretty smooth sailing, and I expect it to continue to be smooth sailing for Caleb Williams. Now, I do expect there to be some more struggles later in the year when they play Green Bay and when they play Minnesota, as a Jeff Hafley-led defense and a Brian Flores-led defense is tough for any quarterback, let alone what will be Caleb's 10th career start or 14th career start by the time these teams play, but I am comfortable saying that Caleb Williams will be a good NFL quarterback for quite a long time, and despite what the Bears did not do right with Justin Fields, they have done the opposite with Caleb Williams. They have put weapons around him. The offensive line will slowly get better, and I think they're going to be an okay unit, and they are going to be a good offense by season's end. Who would have thought that it takes more than 2 games for everything to come into place and for everything to sync up and to be a good collective unit? Caleb Williams was without a doubt worth the number 1 overall pick, and to be honest with you, I think he is already proving himself as to why he was the best quarterback prospect we've seen since Trevor Lawrence. And again, this is from a prospect standpoint, not that I think he's going to be better than what CJ Stroud was last year. The point is Caleb Williams has 2 300-yard passing games in his last 4 games and 3 multi-passing touchdown games out of 4 in his last 4 games, and he is going to be fine. I like Caleb Williams a lot, and he is certainly proving why he was the number 1 pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. The Jags selected Brian Thomas Jr. with the 23rd pick in the draft, and I know the Jags have went through their ups and downs to start the 2024 season, but this was a draft process I loved from the start, and honestly, it goes back to losing Calvin Ridley in free agency. The Jags, and you can say everyone, knew that entering the year with Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis as the team's top 2 receivers was never going to cut it, and all throughout the 2024 draft process, I had mocked them Brian Thomas Jr., and at times, even had them trading up to go get Washington wide receiver Rome Odunze. So for Jacksonville to trade back with the Vikings and pick up a 3rd and 4th rounder in 2025 was a great job by general manager Trent Baalke, and they still got the player they wanted all along in Brian Thomas Jr. Through 7 games, Thomas has over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, and is currently top 6 in the NFL in receiving yards. One of the best things we've seen so far from Thomas is he has a high floor, and I still don't think we've tapped into the player that he can become, and this is for a guy who, again, is in the top 10 in the NFL in receiving yards just 7 games into his career. He has 4 games above 85 yards, including a career-high 122 against the Colts back in Week 5, but he has no games where he has 10 or more targets. He hasn't been a target monster by any means, and he is 26th in the NFL in targets. Obviously, Brian's college teammate is having a great rookie season too in Malik Neighbors, and we'll get to Malik, but Neighbors has 15 more targets than Thomas and has nearly 100 less receiving yards. That isn't to dismiss Malik Neighbors, of course, as much as it is to say the Jags found their receiver of the future in Brian Thomas, and he is more than here to stay. We've made videos in the past about the Jags not helping out their young quarterback once upon a time in Trevor Lawrence, and how in some ways they set him up to fail, but Trevor is only 25 years old. Sure, he may not live up to the expectations he once had as a former number 1 overall pick, which would have been very difficult for him to live up to begin with, but after what was undoubtedly the lowest point in the Jags season, an embarrassing Week 3 loss to the Bills on Monday night, Trevor has played a lot better since then. And in the 4 games since, he has 7 passing touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, and even had the big 370-plus yard performance against the Colts in Week 5. Not surprisingly, Brian Thomas has also picked it up since then, and has 324 yards and 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. If he were to keep that pace for an entire 17-game season, he would have an 81 reception, 1,377 yard, and 13 touchdown season as a 22-year-old rookie. We've seen them connect on the deep ball a couple of times already, but Brian is a lot more than a height, weight, speed rookie. He is winning in numerous ways, and I thought Malik Neighbors would lead the rookies in receiving yards this year, and he still can, but it may actually be Brian Thomas. His career high in receptions at the moment is 6, and again, this is something I expect to change, and soon. The Jags are under a lot of scrutiny due to them underachieving as a team, but good things happen when Brian Thomas gets the football. And if he stays healthy, given he already has 500 yards, I would be shocked if he didn't have a 1,000-yard rookie season. And with Trevor only being 25, along with him signing a big contract to stay in Jacksonville for the next couple of years, this should be one of the better duos for the next couple of seasons. Brian Thomas can get into the top 4 of Jags' all-time leading receivers with just 2,900 career receiving yards, and I would be surprised if he's not there by the end of his 3rd season. The Jags have their wide receiver of the future. You had to think that Jaden Daniels was going to be in this video at some point, and Jaden has had a great start to his rookie season. A lot better than I would have thought. Now, when this selection was made, I was a little worried for Jaden, not because I didn't think he was a good football player, but because of the offensive line. Now, did I think Jaden Daniels was a better prospect than Drake May? Personally, I did not, but I thought Jaden would, at minimum, have a really high floor due to the dual threat ability in his game. And when he was selected, I was also really excited for the potential of the Jaden Daniels to Terry McLaurin connection, as if you followed the career of Terry McLaurin, then you probably know the quarterback play throughout his career has not been great, and we've seen the Jaden to Terry connection multiple times in 2024, and there's been several high highs, including the game-winning touchdown against the Bengals, and Jaden has been a very, very good player for the Commanders so far, and to give you an idea numbers-wise as to how good he's been, excluding the Panthers game because Jaden did not finish that game, Jaden would be on pace for around 4,000 yards and around 28 total touchdowns, again, excluding the Panthers game, which, if you would have said that Jaden would be on pace for 4,000 passing yards, not including rushing yards at all, and 28 total touchdowns, I would go ahead and say, I don't really care what Caleb Williams does, just go ahead and hand the Rookie of the Year award to Jaden Daniels, because that is insane production from a rookie, especially in this offense. Prior to Jaden Daniels taking a snap for Washington, we knew that they were not the best football team, and there was a reason that they finished with the number 2 pick last year, and I was really worried about the offensive line. I thought Jaden would be fine if he could survive behind the offensive line, but if you would have told me that within the first 6 starts of his career that they would have not one, but multiple games without punting the football, to be honest, I wouldn't have believed you, and I also wouldn't have believed you that they would have 3 21-plus point wins. I mean, guys, over the past 20 years, this has not been a good franchise. Their last playoff win was all the way back in 2005, and to see Jaden Daniels completely uproot an organization and to completely turn around a franchise just in 6 games is downright insane. And to go back to the pace he's on, guys, this is a historic rookie season we are witnessing. And of course, we do wish Jaden Daniels the best, as right now he is week to week, and I really hope we get to see a Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels in their rookie year. Obviously, they're going to be compared for a very long time, and I would really like to see both of those guys play at their best in year 1. I think one of the big reasons as to why I'm so confident in Jaden Daniels moving forward is I think you can argue that this will probably be the worst supporting cast he has in the next 2 or 3 years, and that's big for a guy who has played just 6 career games. And I don't want to get into a conversation of what the Commanders could look like in 2035, 2036 if Jaden Daniels is still playing then, but this supporting cast is not great, and if you would have said that entering week 8 that Jaden Daniels' 2 receivers 2 through 4 are Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, and Noah Brown, you probably would have asked, okay, well, how's he holding up, and how are the Commanders holding up, and how's the fan base holding up, assuming they would probably be 1-6 or 2-5, and that they would probably be destined for a top 8 or 9 pick, maybe even higher, and hope that they could select a receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin for the next couple of years, and to give Jaden Daniels a fighting chance. But it hasn't been that. It hasn't been anything close to that, and it's because of how good of a rookie season Jaden Daniels is having, and he is without a doubt proving why the Commanders selected him number 2 overall, and why he will be the face of this franchise for a long time. Now, I want to go ahead and clarify something. This video was made possible by the NFL and YouTube. Recently, I was accepted into what's called the Creator Access Pass program, and this video is partnered directly with the NFL, and it is a very humbling experience for me to be able to reach out to the NFL and say, hey, can I get footage of Jaden Daniels? Can I get video or footage of Malik Neighbors? And it is one of the most humbling things I've had since doing this full time. And again, it is through the Access Pass program, and I could not be more thankful to be given this opportunity. And it's because of you guys watching the videos, and I thoroughly hope you guys enjoyed. And a big shout out to Malik Neighbors as well, who also could have been in this video and very much deserves a spot in this video. But that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as it helps the channel tremendously. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.